As we were talking about what are you passionate about, we're going to be talking about prayer. When Jesus said, when you pray, we've studied that. Now we've gone into when you fast. So today's topic really is regarding fasting. Some of you may experience what fasting is, and you've known it, you've done it, and you've experienced it. Some, maybe you've not. It's not been a practice for you. So the goal of today's message is really to help you understand the discipline, the spiritual discipline of fasting, the benefits, what it is, and why we do it, and how you can do it practically. We're going to look at all those things. But there's a true story. I believe it was 1991, 2001, somewhere. Anyways, true story in Texas, Mount Vernon, Texas. A bar was extending their facility, making a bigger bar in their small town. And as they were building this bar and expanding upon it, there was a local Baptist church in the area that, man, they started picketing and praying and fasting and petitioning that this bar would not extend, would not get bigger. And so, man, the church is all riled up about it. They got the city riled up about it. And guess what happens? The church or the bar starts building. I mean, they go week 1, week 2, they're building, they're constructing. The church is petitioning, the church is praying, the church is fasting that this bar would not be built. And then guess what happens? Weeks later, lightning strikes the bar, burns it down to the ground. The bar owner sues the church for praying and fasting and burning down the church. Well, the reply in the court document, the church vehemently denies that they had any involvement directly or indirectly to the buildings. They didn't want any responsibility, by the way, true story, wanted no responsibility for what happened to the bar. So the bar owner in that, of the proceedings and suing the church, literally the judge sits there with all the paperwork and he goes, I don't know how to make a decision on this case. Based off the paperwork we have here, a bar owner who realizes or who is saying that there is power in prayer and fasting, and a church that denies it. And anyways, how the proceedings went forth, and it was so funny. You got a bar owner who says, no, because of their prayer and fasting, it burned to the ground. And they're like, no, it wasn't us. We didn't do it. It had nothing to do with our power thereof. And so anyways, they go through those proceedings, true story. And here's what I want you to understand. There is something I think we miss as a church regarding that there truly is prayer or power in our prayer. There is power in our prayer life. There's power when it comes to fasting. And these are the things we want to look at today in regard to what is prayer and fasting, the purpose. All of us understand prayer. I mean, none of us would deny that. Most of you pray. Now, maybe not regularly, maybe not all the time, maybe not as often as you want to. But there is some discipline within your life to pray. For instance, you will send me texts through the week. Hey, pray for such and such. We send out one calls often that say, hey, pray for these things. You pray for your family. You all have experienced prayer. And Jesus says, when you pray, because it's something we want to do. It's something that drives us to. But also another characteristic of the believer is this, something that Jesus expects of the believers that follow him, that when you fast. And in Matthew chapter 6, beginning in verse 16, he says, and when you fast, do not look gloomy like the hypocrites, for they disfigure their faces that their fasting may be seen by others. Truly I say to you, they have received their reward. But when you fast, anoint your head and wash your face, that your fasting may not be seen by others, but your Father who is in secret. And your Father who sees in secret will reward you. Now, what I want you to understand, what is the context of the Sermon on the Mount right now? Jesus is dealing with religious people. People who on the outside want to portray something different than who they really are. The Pharisees are very religious people. But here's what happened when they would fast. When you start to fast, guess what happens? You get tired, right? Man, you get worn out, you get irritable, and we're going to cover all those things in just a moment. But what would happen is they would actually create this makeup out of ashes and stuff and like put on their face and be like, man, they would just have this deep mourning. So when they walked around the city and everybody would see them, like, oh man, they're fasting. I mean, they made it a public thing because for some reason, when we cause self-affliction upon ourselves, we glory in that. Like we get some favor with God. And by the way, what fasting is not, you will find in a lot of preaching, if you were to just type in sermons and fasting, you're going to find a lot of churches have a very horrible false doctrine regarding fasting. Some people will tell you that fasting unlocks the windows of heaven and you gain favor with God. And basically, if you fast, you get all the blessings you want. And if you want something, you fast and God gives it to you. You got to be careful. They say the danger with truth is like a razor blade. And when you're on that razor blade, man, anything aside from that is you're in danger of falling off one side or the other. It's very thin. Truth is just a very fine line, and it regards our doctrine and what we believe. And I want you to understand when we talk about fasting, we want to talk about what it is. But it is not a tool to impress others. It is not a tool to tell people like, man, no, it's okay. I'm not going to eat that. I'm fasting. I had somebody at work one day that came and they're like, hey, it's like, no, it's okay. I'm fasting today. Oh, good for you. But why do we tell people we're fasting? Think about it. Why? It's because of some type of glory. Makes us feel somewhat spiritual, or that we have some type of ability or some supernatural, that we are now more in favor with God and more spiritual than others because we fast. And so what I want you to know before we look at what is fasting, I want you to see what fasting is not. And it's not a tool to trump others, to show others that you are better than them. But it is a practice that should be practiced by believers. So much so that when we do fast, it's not where we advertise to others that we are fasting. We actually get to the point where, man, we wash our face extra good, and we try to look, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, like, oh, no, I'm fine, I'm great, I'm wonderful, okay? It's the whole idea that it was what is done within the heart. What is fasting? It is different than dieting. I'm not going to lie, there's sometimes I'm like, I'm going to fast for 40 days so I can drop all the weight I want to in 4 weeks, right? I want to fast so that way all the weight I've gained over my entire life I'm going to lose in 4 weeks, but if I don't eat any food for 40 days. Look, fasting is not dieting. I know there's intermittent fasting and things like that, but fasting has a specific purpose in which we'll look at later. It is regarding spiritual health. Another thing about fasting is that it is intentional. So people ask this question, what do you fast from? Because here's what happens. If you're not careful, when you begin to look at technicalities, people are like, well, if I fast, can I still take my medicine? Can I answer? Yes, take your medicine, okay? Take your medicine. Can I fast from the? Also, if we start getting the technicalities, what do I fast from? How do I fast? And we start getting all worried and tired, man, we're just become like Pharisees at that point, because we're just, man, the whole intention and purpose of fasting is setting our heartstrings towards God. And we're going to look at that in a second, what that looks like. So what kind of fast can you experience or in ways of drawing closer to God? And we'll see some of those later. One, simply a food fast. Fasting from food. Some people are like, well, I'm diabetic, or I'm this, or I got this issue. Or I'm like, the whole point of fasting is not to kill yourself, first of all. So don't do anything the doctors tell you not to do. But it's finding ways that you are comfortable with something. I'll give you a case in point. When I was growing up, me and my sister, we just did stupid things anyways, but we'd wear a big coat, fill it with pillows, and then punch each other in the stomach. None of you ever did that probably? Am I? Okay, just me. Okay, just me. Well, a bunch of padding. You go and you just smack each other, and, carry the couch cushions, and we run through the living room and hit each other, and one of us fall on the ground. Well, anyways, so fasting is like this. So it's the idea that we live in the world, we're cushioned and we're padded. But never did I just wear a T-shirt and tell my sister to punch me in the stomach, because that hurts, right? I would not want to experience that. What fasting does, it removes the cushion, the padding, the comfort you have in your life to really reveal who you are. Because if we're not careful as we go through life, when we have food and we have clothes and we're comfortable, that becomes our crutch. You remove food, not remove clothing, but you remove food, and you get to the point, you realize you reveal who you are. Case in point, somebody comes to work. Let's say they're fasting. They haven't had food in a couple days. They come to you, and they're talking, and you ask them a question. Hey, Bob, how you doing today? And they may just snap and blow your head off and whatever, just get all mad, and they storm off. Anyways, they come to you later and say, look, man, I'm so sorry. I haven't had any food today. I've got a headache. I'm irritable. I'm cranky. I'm just not myself. Here's the truth with fasting. You ready? He's exactly who he is. He just doesn't have his comforts. What fasting does, it reveals who you are. When you give up your comforts, when you give up the things of this world that comfort you and make you depend on those things, what happens is fasting reveals how much we don't depend on God. Fasting helps us reveal our true heart. When somebody says, don't talk to me, I haven't had caffeine yet. Look, caffeine is our crutch. Caffeine is their comfort. Caffeine is what sustains them. I know I'm preaching the choir here too. I'm preaching myself. Sometimes I need caffeine. I got those withdrawals, right? But the truth is, if we begin to fast from those things that we depend on and we comfort ourselves with, it's not the real us that you deal with. You want to start dealing with yourself spiritually and who you are in your raw form, you fast. So what are things you fast from, right? We talk about food. You can fast from food. I mean, you want to be intentional about revealing yourself and revealing your heart, and you want God more than you want anything else. What is it you give yourself time towards? Fasting can look like this. I'm not watching anything, no social media for a week. The younger generation, I mean, right there, I crippled you. What? Oh, I say the younger generation. I'm right there with you. I can't deny it. Okay, I'll say, if you told myself no social media for a week, what will I do with my time, right? But the truth is, fasting doesn't have to be any certain directive. It's got to be something that, man, you find comfort in. It can be food. It can be, I don't know, whatever habits you find yourself given to that brings you comfort. It could be, don't throw stones at me, it could be your coffee that you fast from for a week. It could be television for a week. And I'm saying week. So it could be days. 1 day, 3 days, 5 days, 10 days, 40 days. There's no special formula, okay? Because now, again, you listen to certain people, man, you unlock the windows of heaven, you go on a 7-day fast, 40-day fast, whatever it is, and we'll get to the power of fasting and prayer in a moment. But don't think too much on what do I have to do. Everything is about determining in your heart when you fast. It's about being purposeful and intentional in that fast for a certain purpose. And we'll look at that and why fasting in just a moment. But it can be fasting. Ready? Here's something good for you to fast from. The news. I promise you, you give yourself a week away from watching any news, you know what's going to happen? You'll realize in some sense how beautiful the world is. You actually begin to look at other people as like, wow, these are people. They're humans. The news will mess us up, man. I've told you, like, I can't tell you the last time I've sat down and watched a news program. Again, I'm not fasting from it. I just don't do it. Because when I do, I've told you all before, man, you turn on Fox News, sit down, ready. I'm ready to go join a militia somewhere, right? Like, freedom, just whatever. I mean, all the stuff with the tax things going on now, I'm like, I just got to ignore it. I'm like, look, Lord, you're in control. I don't know what's happening. This world's a mess. And you got to keep on doing what God's called us to do. Maybe it's fasting from media, social media, from news, fasting from a hobby. Fasting, it's got to be something you're given to, something that maybe even in some cases substitutes God in your time and your passions. When you say, I don't have enough time to pray, I don't have enough time to read, maybe there's something in your life you need to give up that allows more time. Luke chapter 14 and 2 Corinthians deals with that. You can give up anything that you turn to when life is tough. How do you cope? Anything that you love or enjoy, just to make sure that it's not a substitute for God. You want to challenge yourself and see if you love something more than God? Give it up for a week. Challenge yourself. Because if we're honest with ourselves, and we talked about this morning, we are distracted people. Man, there's life. Life hits and life hits hard. Guess what? Tomorrow, you know what tomorrow is? Monday. And all Mondays are all the same, right? For the most part. It hits. You've had your weekend, you've slept a little bit, or you haven't slept at all, one or the other. Monday comes around. How do you cope? When life is hard, how do you cope? Everyone has different coping mechanisms. So in that, we understand what fasting is. It's things that we give up. But in essence, if you were to sum it up, it's all about passion driving out another passion. I'll give you this case in point. Let's pretend in 3 years from now, I want to save up for a massive vacation for my family, and I don't know, we're going to go to Europe. We're going to go somewhere amazing. All my family, kid, man, for 3 years, we're going to save up. Going to save, give to it, and man, we're going to have a grand trip 3 years from now and go somewhere, go to Israel. I don't know, name it somewhere. Some awesome trip. Guess what happens in those 3 years? Looking forward to it. Passionate, excited, man, so happy. The day that we get ready to leave, we're walking to the van, we're getting ready, and then let's say Marshall just falls out right there in the driveway. It's like Wonder Woman, pick him up, take him to the hospital, and all of a sudden, we got to do tests, and something's wrong, this or whatever, all those things. Guess what happens? I dare anyone say, well, John, what about your vacation? You think for a moment I would think at all, as my son, they're doing tests and trying to figure out what's wrong. Do you think at all for a moment I'd be like, man, I was supposed to be flying out to Israel now? No, what happens? I've literally traded one passion for another. What if I lose my money? What if I lose my money? I don't care. What happened? Because what happens is we literally trade one passion for another, and that's exactly what fasting is. It's giving something because we are passionate about this world. You can't deny it. We have the flesh of this world. We have things that drive us in this world, things that give us happiness, things that make us happy, and yet we live our lives when things are good. It's really hard to think about God and His goodness and things because we just kind of get on cruise control. What fasting does, it resets the button in your life that says, man, I'm trading my passion for food for my passion to know God more. I want to know Him. And it's the whole idea. What is this fasting? It's literally, the idea is taking one passion and trading it for another passion. The fact that we can know Him, as Paul says in Philippians chapter 3, that may know Him and the power of His resurrection, having fellowship with His sufferings. So why do we fast? One of the cautions in fasting is this: we never want to become legalistic in what we do. Anytime, and look, culture is huge in this, man, all the way back to the ancient worlds, ancient times. Even early Christianity, Gnosticism, they would inflict personal pain upon themselves to make them feel more holy. They would hurt themselves, hit themselves, cause damage to themselves, inflict pain upon themselves to make them feel more holy. And if we're not careful, you can almost do the same thing with fasting. That I'm going to inflict pain upon myself and starve myself so I can be more holy. Okay, you got to be really careful. Again, understanding truth and why we do what we do is extremely important, especially the doctrine of fasting. Why do we fast? We don't do it so we can make ourselves more holy. We fast for a couple different reasons. One, as an act of repentance and confession. Sometimes we realize when you do get to the point you say, look, there's some things I've put over God. And we fast. You look at the stories. Remember what happened in Nineveh when Jonah goes and preaches and he's ready for the whole city to come down and be destroyed? The king summons a fast for the entire land. As one, Judah faced a foreign invasion. They cried out to God for deliverance. And what did they do? Through fasting. So not only do we fast for an act of repentance and confession, we also fast for God's deliverance and direction. You think about Jesus. What happened to Jesus before He was tempted in the wilderness? What was it? What did He do first? What did He go through? What was He involved in? A 40-day fast. He was led by the Spirit into the wilderness on a 40-day fast, and at the end of that fast, you remember what Satan tempted Him with? Hey, Jesus, you know you could turn these rocks into bread. I know right now you're like, why would you want to turn rocks into bread? You ever gone 40 days without eating? Sounds pretty good. I think even at that point, forget the bread, just eat the rocks. There's minerals in them. But He's tempted. There are sometimes in your life you don't know what to do. You don't know what direction to go. I mean, you're pursuing a job, you're pursuing things in your life, and you feel at a loss, and you're praying for God's will in certain ways, and you want to follow Him in His direction. Guess what? Fasting is a great avenue for that. Fasting gives you the ability to hear God more clearly. Also, we see that there's deliverance in fasting. That Jesus even said that some of these things, because, man, they went to go deliver the man that was possessed, and all the disciples are there trying to cast out this demon, and they couldn't do it. Jesus comes over and heals the man. They're like, how did you do it? We did it in your name. He said, some things come by prayer and fasting. Sometimes you'll find deliverance in your own life, deliverance over sin. I encourage anyone that is struggling with sin, addiction, and to fast, to seek the Lord for deliverance through fasting. In fasting, you also, we do it because of the burdens that are put on us. Do you know there are a lot of needs in this world, right? There's lots of needs, and there's no way possibly we could always, every day, pray for every need that is mentioned. But the truth with fasting is there's going to be sometimes God puts something heavier on your heart than normal. And when you're burdened about something and driven by something in your own spirit, and sometimes that drives us to fasting. Not that because I fast, I will see a direct healing or I will see a deliverance in that, But it just shows God how serious I am about this, that I am so burdened and so afflicted by this, that I choose not to eat and focus on prayer and dedication and my relationship with Christ, that I would set aside food because, you know what? I got a lost coworker that, man, is just really bothering me. And I'm burdened by it, and it drives me into fast to be praying because I feel so broken and so burdened for this one coworker that I'm praying for, and so therefore I choose to fast in my seriousness and praying for him. Same thing when you see someone that is sick. Man, when there's been times in our life that we will fast for, and I honestly, I would love to stand up here and be like, hey, these are the times I've fasted in my life, and this is what I've seen God do. And I feel like I don't want to do that for the sake of, again, what he's saying with Pharisees. You don't want to just go out here and be like, these are the times I fast, and this is what I did. But the truth is, I've seen God work through fastings. I've seen an incredible thing. Not saying because of the fasting. I don't know. God may have used it. He may not have used it. But I've seen answer to prayers, deliverance. I've seen things happen because things I was praying for and fasting for, and got to watch God do and move in such a way where when you fast, you pay more attention to his presence in your life. What do you do when you begin to get hungry? Here's the beautiful part when you fast from food. Every time you have that hunger pang, something that just stings in the gut, it reminds you what you're doing and why you're doing it. Man, to pray, it pulls you to be intentional. We also fast because we long for Christ and his return. In the Old Testament, the people fasted as acts of repentance and deliverance. But even so, today, we look at forgiveness and spiritual deliverance through Jesus. Jesus changes what fasting is about for us even. That we will fast because we desire his presence and to know him. As we said this morning, we get busy. Man, life goes a million miles an hour. You're praying about a need. Maybe there's a family member that you're praying for. Fast. If there's a relationship you're in and you're trying to figure out, is this the one? Is this what I should be doing? Fast. I think fasting should be a regular practice of God's people. It can be a one-day fast. Look, you go one day without food, I promise you're going to feel hunger pain at some point. But it's the idea of being willing to give up something for the sake of knowing something better. So how should we fast? When you fast, you always fast humbly. Never like the Pharisees. Never, I can't, I'm sorry, I'm fasting today. Man, you lie. No, I'm just kidding, don't lie. I'm not hungry, right? Man, fast humbly. Fast as though it's just between you and the Lord, because it is. Fast justly. You find yourself fasting for the right reasons. Why do I want to fast? Preparing for a fast, and even coming out of a fast is extremely important. As you go into a fast, it's not one of those you just, man, let me go eat KFC right before I do this thing. Let me go to Golden Corral and throw down, and I'm going to try to go a whole week and let all this food subside for a whole week, right? It's the wrong way to enter into a fast. A fast is something you prepare in your mind. It's something you do intentionally and purposefully. It's a discipline. It's a practice. And so you get your mind ready for what you're about to do. And because I promise you, you eat a bunch of Golden Corral before you fast, that next day you're going to be so miserable as all the toxins expel your body and leave. Drink a lot of water when you go without food. I'm telling you, it can be horrible. Actually, in some of the Muslim countries, they will look at each other when they do Ramadan. And they'll be like, stick out your tongue, because they want to know if you're really fasting or not during their 40-year period. I mean, when you fast, and especially you go in 40 days and they fast through the whole day and they can only eat at night, whatever, man, they get all that nasty stuff on their tongue, you know, the detox and all that. But they judge each other. Be like, you're not fasting. Your tongue looks clean. And so anyways, they judge one another. We won't do that to you when you come in the church. We won't look at your tongue. But most importantly with fasting, fast with purpose. You want to see God work in your life, and this is something I'm just very passionate about in this sense. I think too many times we get very casual in our relationship with Christ. We go through what we can control. We cling to the comforts of this world. We enjoy our food. We find pleasure in our food. Right? I mean, you have a bad day. Man, nothing on a bowl of ice cream can't help. Man, for me, it's Zaxby's boneless wings and things. Oh, man, with the Diet Coke. Nothing is better than that moment. Especially when you get done eating and you're just like, all is good, right? I mean, the whole world, everything's fine. But what happens when you remove those comforts? What happens when you remove the things that you cling to? You become irritable, you become self-centered, you become selfish. You begin to reveal who you really are. Because without the things of this world you hold to, you realize who you are in your own heart. And it's in those moments that we cling to Him purposely and intentionally in a fast, realizing how desperately we need Him and His strength. And so why do we fast? It's so that we can know Him. So we can see Him move in our life. And I don't know about you again. I know this is a different topic and one you probably don't hear much on. But if I could get just one thing clear to you this morning is this. If you're a believer and follower of Jesus, fasting should be something that you practice. Again, doesn't have to be a 40-day thing. Doesn't have to be a set. Look, there's been times in my life, I'll be honest, there's been times in my life I've wanted to do a 40-day fast. But then I quickly, what are you thinking? No, you don't. But when I begin to identify the reasons why I want to do a 40-day fast, because I think it'd be cool to go 40 days to be able to say, hey, I want a 40-day fast. I had to identify that. I got to realize that. You got to identify your own heart. And so when you go to fasting, again, you have to get to the whole purpose of why am I doing this? What's the intention? What's the purpose for this fast? There's some people, some pastors I know, they'll fast once a week. They'll fast every Thursday. A fast for you can look like this. I'm not going to answer my phone all day. I'm fasting from people. Wouldn't that be nice? Find something. Don't get into technicalities of, okay, well, if I fast from food, can I have juice? If you want juice, have juice. The whole idea is just, man, fast from something that you're finding comfort in. Because once you remove the comforts from your life, you're going to be able to see who you really are. And in that moment, you're going to realize how much more you need His grace and how much more He will sustain you even without your comforts. Because we find Christ strong even in our weakness. I think sometimes fasting allows us to be weak. Fasting allows us to, get to the place of realizing what it's like to not have, to not depend on the flesh, to depend on the physical, but rather the spiritual. And so for your challenge this week, not to advertise it, not to put on Facebook, not even tell a family member, I want to fast. Try it out. Purposefully, intentionally. If you have questions about it, man, ask me questions. Again, the whole idea, look, and we've done this before. I'll let her know. Be like, hey, I'm doing a fast day. So that way when she makes lunch, I'm like, I'm not hungry. I'm not eating it. No, I get that. The whole idea of why you don't tell people, it's the idea of not throwing on Facebook like, man, it's 9 o'clock in the morning. Really, man, missing that coffee. Man, fasting for Jesus, it's so hard. Man, this fast, oh man, only 12 more hours to go, right? That's what Jesus is talking about. If you got to tell your wife so she don't make you breakfast and then she gets mad because you ain't eating it, man, okay. Get to the understanding of why we do what we do. I want to challenge you this week. At least think about it. When's the last time I fasted? When's the last time I gave something up for the intention of wanting to know Christ and revealing who I truly am before Him and that He would work in my life? Because the whole desire is to know Him and to know His presence even more. Because what happens is every time you feel hunger, every time you go on your phone to click on the app that you've deleted, oh yeah, I'm fasting. Oh yeah, I'm fasting. Oh yeah, that hurts. Man, what's it drive you to do? I'm praying. Every time I feel the pain, I pray. Every time I feel that incline to go to something comfort, I'm praying. It's very intentional, it's very purposeful, and I promise you, you will watch God move in your life in an amazing, powerful way. As we stand with heads bowed and eyes closed, it is a short one, and you are out by 11. And God's people said, no, right? Amen. Children workers aren't going to know what to do. Somebody fasted today that I would preach short, and your prayers have been answered. I'm just kidding. But guys, look, and I really do. And all of this, I just want to challenge you. I want our people to know the power of Christ in their life. I mean, what it is to have a relationship with Him and to have a real relationship. And in that, part of our practicing is not just praying. It's not just doing the other spiritual disciplines that we know. but incorporating fasting into your life and just see how it challenges you and works in your life. But let's go to the Lord in prayer, and we'll be dismissed. And thank you guys for being here.